Alright, U9, welcome back to lesson 3 for this week. As always, starting off with our 10 quick questions, and today's 10 quick questions, I just want you to practice on rounding the decimals. So please make sure that you read the question carefully and round, we're rounding all these to 2 decimal places. So have a go at doing them. Pause the video now, come back, and I'll see you in a second. Alright, U9, thanks for doing those quick questions, remembering the answers at the end of this worksheet. Today what I want to talk about is using our calculator with the sine, cosine and tangent functions. So our school recommends on our calculator list that you have the Casio FX82AU. There are 2 versions of it out there on the market at the moment. The one on the right hand side of your screen, this one here, is the one that's available from the math staff room. The one on the left hand side, it's the fancier, newer, updated version that you can use at the moment. So we're going to be looking at how can we use our calculators to play along with the trigonometric functions. So a couple of things I want to introduce to you is the sine, cosine and tangent buttons. They are sitting right there on your calculator in that second row up of all those fancy buttons. And it goes sine, cos and tan, and we use them. Now the important thing to recognize is that on the left hand, or just using sine, cosine and tangent by themselves, that helps us do something with the numbers. It helps us figure out something with the fraction of the calculators, with the fractions. So those buttons down there, sine, cosine and tangent, they help us do something and figure out that half. Up above sine, cosine and tangent, you can see sine and cosine and tangent with a little power of -1. To get them, you press shift and then you press sine, cosine or tangent, and we use that sine with that little -1 up there, or cosine or tangent, and that helps us tell us something about the angle of a triangle. It helps us some information. So let's scroll on down, look at some examples and how we use our calculator with trigonometry. Alright, so the question here, whoa, scrolling a bit too fast there. It says evaluate the following correct to 2 decimal places. And the first one it wants us to evaluate is tan of 57.4 degrees. So now that I have my calculator up there on the screen, I'm just going to type in tan. Now I'm going to put my angle of 57.4 and I'm just going to close my bracket. Now, even though that it's got a degree symbol up here, if you look at your calculator display, up the top there's this very little D, and that little D says on my calculator is in degrees mode. So every single time I use sine, cosine or tangent on my calculator, it assumes whatever's in the brackets right there is in degrees straight away. I've got that typed in, I'm going to press equals, and that is equal to 1.5636 blah blah blah, and to 2 decimal places becomes 1.56, because that 3 does not make that second 6 round up. Alright, example B there, 68.3 times sine of 38.75 degrees. So just clearing my calculator display, and I'm just going to 68.3 times, I'm just going to press sine of 38.75, close my brackets, remembering that because my calculator is in degrees, it knows that's a degree, pressing equals, and we are left with 40, oh, helps if your pen's on, 42.7505 blah blah blah, and that rounds to 42.75. Alright, moving on to example 2. Example 2, and I'll just move the calculator out of the way quickly so we can see what it says. It says round 23 over cos of 19 degrees to 3 significant figures. Alright, so clearing my display, pressing my fraction, 23, arrowing down of cos of 19. And I'm just going to pause here and I'm just going to show you something. If I was to press equals right now, I get syntax error. And syntax error just means you've typed something wrong in your calculator. Your calculator's not sure of what's going on. If I hit my replay button, you can see here at the end of 19, I forgot to close my bracket. So I need to go over there and make sure I close my bracket. And once I've got my bracket closed, my calculator's happy. So 24.325, blah, blah, blah. And it wants it to 3 significant figures. So I want the first 3 important numbers, and those first 3 important numbers are 24.3. This number 2 after the 3, it doesn't make 3 round up. So I'm leaving my answer as 24.3. Alright, and finally it asks find the following acute angles, and I'm pretty sure it says to the nearest degree. Okay, so because this says find the acute angles, I'm going to say then that B is equal to tan to the minus 1 16 over 23. When I'm finding angles, remember we have to press Shift 10. So B is going to equal, I'm going to clear this, Shift 10. You can see now I've got that minus 1. And in brackets, I'm going to write 16 over 23. Well, didn't need the double bracket, but that's okay. And it's 34.8. So 34.8, which becomes 35 degrees when I round it to the nearest degree. And for question B, I'm going to do the exact same thing again. It is going to be A is equal to inverse or sine to the minus 1 of 0.7613. You can imagine what's going on there behind my calculator. You can see it there. I'm just going to type that on my calculator. So clear, shift, sine, there's the minus 1 of 0.7613. Close that bracket, hit enter, and you can see it's 49.57. Rounding that to the nearest degree, we get 50 degrees when I round it to the nearest degree. All right, Year 9, your work, and for this lesson as well, there is a worksheet on the next page. When you scroll down through these lesson notes, complete that worksheet, and as always, correct your work from the solutions, fix any errors, take a photo, upload it to Canvas by Friday. Alright guys, that's this week's worth of work done. Make sure you get that done, and I will catch you next week.